What is a true fact so baffling, it should be false? There is a 1 in roughly 5.2 to the 61st power chance that if you were to slap a table, all of the molecules in your hand and the table would miss each other and your hand would go through it. Story time. I learned this fact from a deep intellectual conversation with my engineering class 2 years ago, so there very well could be some kind of detail I'm missing here, but nonetheless, what I said is theoretically true. So if I slap a table 52000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000 times, I might phase through it just once. I'll take those odds. Edit. Apparently that would be known as 52 novemdecillion. Need I went to middle school with a guy who lost his ring finger reaching under a lawnmower, and he told me once that the blades moved through the rest of his fingers in this way, and that why he lost only the one finger, and not all 4 of them. There used to be a radioactive energy drink called Redditors that was in the US market for a decade from 1918 to 1928. Some of the more prominent users had to be buried in lead coffins. Didn't they take that off the market after some guy drank so many of them so quick that his lower jaw fell off? Oh my god, he did. Apparently he even developed holes in his skull. That's horrifying, poor dude. Some 30 to 40 years before that, stage entertainers in London did phosphorus shows where black-clad dancers covered their hands and faces with shiny chemical and performed in total darkness. Giant squids have a donut-shaped brain, so their esophagus can run through the middle. If they try to swallow too large a bite of food, they can get brain damage. It's crazy to think that giant squid used to be one of those mysterious sea monsters. Is it though? That thing looks like something out of a nightmare. He didn't say it wasn't a monster, just that it wasn't a mystery anymore. You could take away all of Wayne Gretzky's goals that he scored during his career, and he would still be the all-time NHL points leader off his assists alone. Bonus Gretzky fact. He and his brother own the record for being the highest scoring pair of siblings. Brent had 4 points in his whole career. Of every father and son combo in NHL history, Wayne and Trevor Gretzky have the most goals. Trevor Gretzky was a baseball player. What makes this even crazier is that he also has the most goals in NHL history, so it's not like he just scored a couple hundred goals and had a million assists. If he never scored a goal, then he would have missed 100% of the shots he did take and still had the most points in NHL history. I'm not sure what this means exactly. Every day that you go to work you pass more people than an average medieval person did in their entire life. Every day a medieval person sees more dead bodies littering the landscape than the average modern person does in their entire life. I wish it was still that way today. This planet is way too populated. As much as I dislike violence, I too hope for genocide. The youngest mother to give birth became pregnant at 4 years old. She's still alive and resides in Lima, Peru apparently. Lena Medina had a rare condition whereby her body went through puberty very early, making it possible for her to conceive a child. Her son was born via cesarean section when she was 5 years and 7 months old and was raised as her younger brother. The father was never fully confirmed, though suspicion fell on male family members. The girl herself obviously had no clear recollection. Sounds like people are stepping on eggshells, making it sound like the woman is like a fucking disguised superhero or something, and details are foggy. She was raped. A family member probably did the raping. And she was 4. He raped a 4-year-old, she had a baby, and he didn't get punished. The USA is the 3rd most populated nation on Earth. If you were able to add 1 billion people to the US population today, it would still be the 3rd most populated nation on Earth. I thought we were full. Just look at the Midwest and imagine if it was actually populated. The reason, and a big one you are forgetting why not many people live in the Midwest, is because that's where all our food is produced. It's literally the breadbasket of the US. You move a bunch of people there, you produce way less food, and yet demand way more. I don't know if this was meant as a funny dig at the Midwest or a dig with some seriousness. Regardless, it spawned some ignorant comments down the line. But if you live in the Midwest or many other parts of the world, it's the reason for the food in your belly and the clothes on your back. The gravity of black holes is so great that it literally bends light around the black hole, so that if you could somehow stand close enough to a black hole and look straight ahead, you would actually see the back of your own head. Finally, I could shave my own neck. Neck right. I feel this too much. I've cut my own hair for over a decade, but still am not 100% self-sufficient at it. Yeah, but still end up doing that thing with your hand, where you get confused on the angle you're trying to make. LOL, I hate it so much. When the 22nd president of the US, Grover Cleveland, was 27 years old, he was friends with a married couple who had a baby girl named Frances. As a gift, he bought them a high-end baby stroller for little Frances. 21 years later, he married Frances, and she became the youngest first lady. Think about that. This isn't mind-blowing or anything, but a fun presidential fact. Grover Cleveland was also the only US president to serve 2 non-consecutive terms. He was the 22nd and 24th president, with Benjamin Harrison 23rd president, serving as the meat in the sandwich that was Grover Cleveland's 2 terms. It also makes Donald Trump the 45th president, but only the 44th person to be president. I love that fact. A morbidly obese person can survive with absolute starvation without any sickness or feeling ill, under close control. There have been studies since 60s. There is a patient in 1973 who went under a 382-day starvation diet for therapeutic purposes under close control, with only vitamin and mineral supplements, and water intake without protein, carbohydrate or fat intake, no food at all. Dropped from 207 kilograms to 88 kilograms and maintained it. After a follow-up checkup 5 years later, the patient was 96 kilograms, stabilized. Prolonged fasting had no ill effects. If anybody is curious about the article, the PubMed ID is PMC2495396. Edit. Fixed autocorrect. Keep in mind, for anyone tempted to imitate, multiple others attempted this after him and wound up dead. Do not try this at home. It requires very strict supervision. From what I remember, a lot of deaths are from when they start eating again. You have to start back extremely slowly. People were deliberately infected with malaria to cure their syphilis, and the man who developed this treatment, Julius Wagner Jauregg, received the Nobel Prize for it. The extremely high fevers of the malaria infections killed the syphilis bacteria, then the patients were cured of the malaria using quinine. Quinine is the reason tonic water glows under blacklight. TIL tonic water glows under blacklight. Yeah, why da fuck aren't we all serving gin and tonics at Halloween parties? The life of Frane Selak, the luckiest unlucky man in the world. January 1962. Frane is riding on a train through a freezing canyon when it fell into an icy river. All 17 other passengers died while he escapes with a broken arm and hypothermia. 1963. On his first plane trip, he was sucked out of the plane's door and landed in a haystack, unscathed. 19 other people were killed in the crash. 1966. He was riding in a bus when it skidded off the road into yet another icy river. 4 passengers drowned while he only received some minor cuts and bruises. 1970. His car's engine burst into flames while he was driving, but he managed to escape before it exploded. 1973. In yet another driving incident, his car's engine was doused with hot oil from a broken fuel pump. This caused flames to shoot through the air vents, singing off all of his hair. He was otherwise unharmed. 1995. He was hit by a bus but only sustained minor injuries. 1996. To escape a head-on collision with a United Nations truck on a mountain curve, he swerved into a guardrail that broke on impact. To save himself, he jumped out of his car's open door and grabbed onto a tree branch as he watched his car plummet off the cliff. Suffice to say, the guy had a complicated relationship with the Grim Reaper. Edit. Got his name wrong. Edit 2. Got the first edit wrong, turns out I was right the first time. He also won the lottery, I think. Yup. In 2003, he won $1.1 million in US dollars. In 2010, he gave the rest of his money to friends and family as he wanted to live a more frugal life. TASER is actually an acronym for Thomas A. Swift's electric rifle. TASER laser is also an acronym for light amplified by stimulated emissions of radiation. SCUBA is an acronym for self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. Just always pray at night, you woo. Radar is actually also an acronym for radio detection and ranging. Sonar is the analog. Sound navigation and ranging. More people died making the V-2 rockets during World War II than were killed by them. Another fun fact about V-2 rockets. Germany was facing a large issue with rocket fuel shortages during the project because people kept drinking it. The fuel was made from 70% ethyl alcohol and 30% water, distilled from potatoes. It was the most economically viable fuel at the time, since they were already very low on other fuels. To stop workers from drinking it, they denatured the alcohol, essentially poisoning it, but people kept drinking it anyways and getting extremely ill. This simply caused people to start leaving the V2 program, suggesting that they were only in it for the free alcohol. This also means that any alcohol over 70% ABV is stronger than actual World War II rocket fuel. During Prohibition in the US, people started drinking industrial alcohol, and hardcore prohibitionists insisted that it be denatured by the addition of methanol. The strategy actually backfired because people saw that guys who committed the only crime of sneaking a little banned drink were being punished with blindness and death. Switzerland has accidentally invaded Liechtenstein thrice in the last 50 years. On the first time in 1976, Swiss military got lost and ended up in Liechtenstein, so the Liechtensteiners offered them drinks like proper hosts. On the second time in 1992, Swiss military forgot that a certain observation post was actually not in Swiss territory, but in Liechtenstein territory, so they just said sorry and forgot about it. Then again in 2007, the Swiss army got lost and entered Liechtenstein, but eventually realized they weren't in Switzerland anymore, Toto, so they turned back. Liechtenstein didn't even know this happened till the Swiss apologized, again, to which they basically said, no problem, bro. Takeaways. The Swiss army are bad with directions. The Liechtenstein army people are chill bros. According to Wikipedia, Liechtenstein doesn't have a military. It has a police force that consists of 87 field officers and 38 civilian staff, totaling 125 employees. Been there and it seems like they have more banks than people. The color orange is named after the fruit. Before, the color orange was called red. This is why people with orange hair are called redheads. They used to not have a separate color for orange, it was just considered a shade of red. Hence why people with orange hair are still called redheads. The shade was called yellow red, spelled yellard at the time IIRC. It was eeler ad for reddish orange and yalakrog for yellowish. Sharks evolved before trees did. Trees evolved before the bugs responsible for rotting, i.e. bacteria which could eat lignin and cellulose, did. Thus when they died, they just fell over in place and lay there instead of rotting. Over time, the weight of the upper layers of tree corpses compacted the lower levels, which eventually became the coal we dig up and use today. The coolest thing about this is that since there were so many trees just blanketing the continents of the earth, and that they were basically sitting on top of coal, that whenever something, say, a lightning strike, hit a dead pile of wood, it could spark a forest fire that would rage across large swaths of whole continents, and they would last for years. Think about how fucking insane that would look from space, or the top of a mountain. Just nothing but fire for as far as you can see in all directions. Only 4 people have been to the Challenger Deep, the deepest part of the ocean. One of those people is James Cameron, the director of Titanic. Didn't he make the movie Titanic as an excuse to visit the actual wreck? I thought that was just some shit that South Park made up. Wow. He's James Cameron. The bravest pioneer. James Cameron does what James Cameron does because James Cameron is James Cameron. President John Tyler, born in 1790, has 2 living grandsons. A similar one I like is that there is a living person who is the daughter of a US Civil War veteran, at least as of 2017. And she gets to draw a Civil War veteran's pension. It isn't much. $73.13 per month. But I can imagine there is a certain pride in that legacy. The last person to draw benefits from the Civil War. There was this French guy named Terror in the late 1700s that could eat anything, in any amount. He was able to eat a quarter of a cow on one day, and ate dinner for 15 for one meal when he was being tested. He was even able to swallow an entire eel, with bones included, without hesitating. When he went to the military service, they used him as message transport, but after being captured he went back and tried to find a cure. In the hospital where he was staying, he was suspected of eating a baby, so they kicked him out. He was average weight, and when he died a few years later they could see inside his stomach just by opening his mouth. Here's a video which explains it on better detail. This was almost definitely an alien pretending to be a dude. They suspected him of eating a baby. He was caught multiple times eating corpses in the morgue, IIRC. The longest time between 2 twins being born is 87 days. I see these threads a bunch, but this answer has me interested. Gonna look up the source on that one. Kilkenny, Ireland, gave birth to twins Amy Ann and Kate Marie, Katie, Elliot 87 days apart, making them the twins with the longest interval between their births. The twins were born at Waterford Regional Hospital. Amy was born prematurely on 1 June 2012, and Kate followed on 27 August. Guinness World Records. Seems like that would be a shitload of stress for the unborn twin in the womb. There is an extremely rare condition called Stone Man Syndrome. It causes any smallest damage done to tissue to regrow into a bone. Speaking briefly, people affected by this sickness slowly turn into living statues as they get older. Wikipedia. Surgical removal of the extra bone growths has been shown to cause the body to repair the affected area with even more bone. I'll never sleep again. Adult patients eventually have to decide on what position they wish to predominantly take for the rest of their lives. This was creepier for me. Stalin, Hitler, and Freud all lived in Vienna at the same time. Edit. And as others have pointed out, including a source further down, Tito and Trotsky were also there. Imagine a sitcom with them all as roommates. Damn it, Stalin, stop eating my food. It is our food, Freud. I will stop eating it when you stop banging your mother. Will you two Untermenschen kindly shut the fuck up? I'm trying to paint. I can't fuck this up. This is my last chance to get into the academy. When Mount Everest was first measured, it was exactly 29,000 feet. It was reported as 29,002 because exactly 29,000 was not believable. I'm picturing someone standing at the bottom with a tape measure and someone running all the way up with the other end. Imagine the one climbing Everest accident let go like right before they got to the summit. Wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of that rape measure. Edit. Tape. Especially if it's a rape measure. Yikes. We live many times closer to the last dinosaur than the first and last dinosaur did to each other. And Cleopatra lived closer to the first man on the moon than to the time the pyramids were built. And there were still living woolly mammoths when the pyramids were being built. Did they help though? Yay, saw it in that one historical documentary 10,000 BC. The record for most children born to one mother is 69, to the wife of Fyodor Vasilyev, B. 1707 C. 1782, a peasant from Shire, Russia. In 27 labors, she gave birth to 16 pairs of twins, 7 sets of triplets and 4 sets of quadruplets. Edit. Wife name is Valentina Vasilyeva. Not sure what's more impressive, having that many children, or considering it's the 1700s, living through it. Would be interested in how many of the kids survived too. That poor woman. Imagine being pregnant for over 20 years. The speed of light is always the same, regardless of the relevant speed of the observer. Say you're standing still, and a car passes you at 60 miles per hour. It passes you at 60 miles per hour, right? Say you're driving at 30 miles per hour, and a car passes you at 60 miles per hour. Because you're already moving at 30, the car only moves away from you at 30 miles per hour. Light doesn't work this way. If you're standing still and turn on a flashlight, the beam of light moves away from you at light speed. But if you're moving at half the speed of light and turn on a flashlight, the beam still moves away from you at light speed, even though it's only moving at the standard speed of light. So even people who aren't moving half the speed of light see it moving at the same speed as you do, which isn't possible. But is somehow true. It makes no sense and makes me think there is a lot to physics we still have to learn, and I bet we find out a lot of the things we know are wrong. We are all colorblind and lying to each other about it. Because everyone has a different amount of rods and cones in their retina, no person on Earth sees the exact same color. We all just agree on a certain name. Which can cause interesting anomalies. For example, some cultures collectively agree that blue and green are the same color. Japan is a good example, or a whole ethnic group will straight up just not have a name for a whole color range. In fact, as humans we seem to be evolving to see more colors. Across the entire world the first described colors seem to be white and black, followed by red. From there it's yellow and green, then way down the line blue comes along. The entire world didn't even know the color blue existed for a long time. Older stories like Homer's The Odyssey level of old go into incredible detail about clothes, facial features, animals, armor, etc. But the ocean is just described as wine dark, and that's it. Wine is not blue. Water is the only substance that expands and becomes less dense as it cools. If it didn't, ice would sink to the bottom of the ocean and eventually freeze the entire planet, except a thin skim of water on the surface as the sun shone down on it. Basically life would never occur. Not entirely accurate. Bismuth and antimony are both less dense in their solid state, along with several alloys. But, yes, it is extremely rare. Water is the only substance that expands and becomes less dense as it cools. Another person addressed that it's not the only substance, but more interesting to me than its rarity is that it's only true below about refrigerator temperature. Above that, it shrinks as it cools like you'd expect.
Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video. Tell me what you dislike or love about this video, so please comment below and hit the bell icon so you're notified anytime a new video is released. This is a WeCrow Media production.